nothing. I don't have any problems with like, bash bar people or, anything like that. But, when I think of like drifting internally, like my vision of it is like cool low body kits, loud cars, rev limiter banging, big tire smoke, stuff like that.
Drip and Drift.
Welcome to the Drip and Drip podcast. My name is Nick, and today's guest, Chris Sarkar, part member of Drip Team Risky Business. Thanks for being here, man.
Thank you.
Are you a founder of the team?
No, so the team started like in the early 2010s.
Okay.
Eric Conkling is the guy that actually started it, and the team actually used to be a different like group of people. It's always been just kind of like a group of friends basically the entire time, and we're out of Gainesville, so like people come, people go, that kind of stuff. People fall out of drifting, all of that kind of stuff. So. I'm kind of essentially what is like the second generation of like what Drift Team Risky Business is or Drip Team Risky Business is. So like I didn't really like, I started hanging out with everybody around like 2018, 2019, I want to say.
Okay.
But they had been a thing since, the group had been a thing since like 2013.
Well, I definitely want to get into especially what y'all been doing recently, but what have you been up to in the past couple weeks? Anything crazy going on? Just kind of getting the what's it called? Just trying to, get the feeling of like, I need to drive, I need laps like out of the system. So, we just drove, Gallop and I and Boomby just drove Frankenslide. Cool.
And, basically just different stuff. I'll be driving the Mystery Meat V2 Lab thing next weekend. And, just trying to find like easy stuff that's like easy to get to, to just come drive for cheap.
Do laps.
Going to Final Bout was like pretty heavy on the pocket, towing the car all the way to Chicago.
I bet.
Shut that off real quick.
Yeah.
It's it's just like a lot of money and stuff. So, just trying to find like easier to get to, cheaper stuff to drive, like, for the rest of the year. I was thinking about trying to go to the Chase Bays event at, what was it? Polecat. But it just isn't really in the finances.
I feel you, man. So. I was actually supposed to be doing Showtime this weekend.
Oh yeah.
But I figured the hurricane just happened. Like St. Pete, I'm sure isn't the best right now, and I just said I'll hold off on it until either later in the year or.
I saw something online about like the city is like not doing anything with or like the city's like using Showtime to stage different what is it called, like cleanup and stuff like that, because the two hurricanes like back to back, they barely. I saw stuff on Instagram where like there's giant piles of trash and debris and stuff from the first hurricane, and then the second one came in and just rickrolled everything. So
dude, things looked. I saw a couple of videos from not Showtime, but from St. Pete after. Yeah, man, it looked rough. But prayers go out to anybody that's still being affected by it and everything like that.
Yeah, definitely.
How'd you get into drifting? You said you got into the team 2019-ish.
Yeah.
Were you obviously drifting before that?
Yeah. So I'm originally from Port St. Lucie. And whenever it was time, graduated high school, going to college, I moved up to Gainesville, and, I had a 2005 Toyota Celica at the time. It was just like, a lot of my buddies from down south used to, do drag racing and like go to like clean culture events and stuff like that. So, the Celica had like coil, like BCs on it and, some XXR wheels because that's what I could afford at the time. It was like lowered and had a sub and it was, just like fun little daily.
I like the 90s version. If I'm thinking yours is like more.
Oh, no, mine was the early 2000s, like Need for Speed.
Yes.
Or not Need for Speed, but I wanted.
Not the circle headlights. It's like more like almost like Z headlights.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I always like whenever I was younger, I wasn't really ever able to play like Call of Duty and stuff because like that was always M rating. My parents wouldn't let me.
Yeah.
So really, I played like F1 2009, Need for Speed Underground, like the original one for PS2. All of those kind of games. So like. I had like a maxed out Celica, so I thought it was like the coolest shit ever. I used to get made fun of so much for it. But yeah, I had that. I always like knew about like drifting, but I never I never went to the track or anything like that. So around like 2016, I was at a car meet in Gainesville, and I met this guy named Alex Schlegel, who actually ended up driving 2 seasons of Pro 2 Formula Drift. And maybe it was 2 seasons. I don't know for sure, but I think it was about 2 seasons. But he was originally driving for Drift HQ before LZ kind of came into the picture and stuff. But I met him, and like he had this this like pretty cool S13 convertible. That was, I think it had like a 5.7 or a 6 liter in it. Okay. T56, like comp car. He was doing a lot of the Pro-Am events at that time. And, I was like, man, like drifting's like really cool. I always saw, the old like, the Animal Style like parking lot video and like the Risky Devils, like Wasted Summer videos and stuff like that online. And I always thought it was so cool, but front wheel drive car and could never really do it. Yeah. So, in 2017, he basically talked me into buying a 350Z. So that was my first drift car. And then like I bought that thing in like the beginning of February in 2017. And then literally less than a month later, I went to OSW for the first time. Like VLSD, Eibach lowering springs. It had like a JWT pop charger and a plenum spacer and, a tune and stuff like that. So like it was a fun car.
Yeah, but you can hit the track stock basically.
Yeah, man. I mean, I didn't even like. I remember we were in the drivers' meeting, right? And who was it? I think it was Tyson was running the events at the time, and he was like, "Oh, like, does anybody like who's here for the first time?" I raised my hand. He was like, "Oh, cool, like." Anybody like first timer, do they have like a working handbrake? And I was like, I tried to make mine work, but it wouldn't work. And actually LZ came over and like, was like, oh, like there's like a adjuster thing on the handbrake, because I wasn't a mechanic at the time. So I didn't really I wasn't super knowledgeable. Yeah. Like I put the coilovers on my Celica and that kind of stuff. I'd like help buddies out whenever because my dad had a garage. So, we could just sneak it in and like do stuff because they had a homeowners association, so we weren't really allowed to like work on the cars in the driveway. But yeah, just 350Z, pretty like stock. Drove it like that for a while. Eventually met a guy on like one of the local Gainesville like Facebook pages for car stuff. He welded my diff for me, and finally bought coilovers because I think it was like one of the like first events that they ever like had at the firm. It was like a test day because Alex Schlegel actually was their like drift coordinator for a while. I don't really know what the current situation with that is, but
they have one drift event like a year maybe. Like I went to the Holiday Matsuri one, but that's not happening again. So like yeah, it was fortunate I got to drive it at least once. But. Yeah,
but that was like the car was still VLSD. It still had lowering springs and stuff.
Sorry to cut you off, but Beast Coast did have an event there too. So I guess they are still doing some drift events.
So because I think like Catch My Drift did an event there. I think they do mostly like stuff in Georgia nowadays, but they had an event there. But the event that I like first time I ever drove there was literally like the employees of the firm and like the owners and stuff out there just like, hey, like what do you like let's try this out. Let's invite a couple people, like all different skill levels. So Schlegel was there with his comp car. I think they're like I didn't really know anybody at the time, so like I think Ryan Kaufman might have been there, might have not. There was a blue RX-7 that was there. I don't remember if it was him or not, but you know, a couple of different people. So you know, that was like the first like 2 or 3 events that I drove. The car was like bone stock.
Yeah.
You know, never got the handbrake. Oh, I was talking about LZ, but you know, he came over and, you know, tried to adjust the thing and didn't really fix it or anything. But you know, it was a valiant effort, and you know, I appreciated it a lot.
For sure. It's always nice when somebody shows you how something works, or if like even on your own stuff. Like when I had the 240, people like, oh, you need to do this or try this, and like, oh, thank you so much. Like,
but you know, I drove the Z, you know, for like probably like 2 years. It never actually had like a real angle kit on it. You know, Injuku sold like the Phase 2 Motorsports, like extended or not extended, but like the inner tie rod with like the like rack spacer in it, not like the offset one, but just like, you know, the normal like washer or whatever. So I had that. I like took the bump stops out of the lower control arms completely. So it like over center all the time, but it had more angle. So I was like, all right, cool, like angle mods. Yeah. And then, you know, never got the handbrake to work. So there was I don't remember his name, but there was a guy that used to work at or currently works at MazWorks. He was working somewhere else at the time, but he made like a what is it? Like a hidden dual caliper setup that like it basically had the handle like coming out right next to the AC controls, and then it remote mount is what they call it. But it had like a long rod that actually went like out behind the behind like the factory handbrake, and it was like just welded to the transmission tunnel, like this bracket for the master. And you know, there was like some Canadian company at the time, because they weren't. This is like still 2017, so there wasn't really like a whole bunch of like dual caliper kits that you could buy for a reasonable amount of money. So like this kit was basically just, you know, longer bolts for the like wheel bearing. It had like a CNC'd plate that had like another pickup for the for like another stock caliper, you know, single piston caliper, and you know, ran the lines and stuff. And you know, that was like the setup that I drove that car with BC's, you know, for 2.5 years. And then that car basically, you know, all I ever drove really was like the firm a couple times. And then they had events at Gainesville Raceway that I drove a couple times before they stopped doing those. They don't drive there anymore. And then, yeah, just mainly OSW events really. But that car actually ended up getting rear-ended.
On the street?
Yeah. So I was like going to the junkyard to try to like find some parts for a buddy of mine. And on the way back from the junkyard, I was sitting at the bottom of this hill. And, you know, people over the hill, people always like, that's like a very, very common spot in Gainesville where like people just drive way too fast. There's like apartment complexes there, and there's like a wall that they have that like people can come do murals on. Like you can come like graffiti it, but it's not like illegal. So it was like at the bottom of that hill, and some girl with she was like a 17-year-old girl with her grandmother and her pregnant sister in the back seat, came hauling ass down the hill like 55 miles an hour is what the cops told me. Like she probably hit me at, and man, that thing shoved the rear bumper was like a foot into the actual like hatch. The rear quarters in front of the door had buckled, like it moved the subframe up and like totaled that car. So I was able to get some amount of money from insurance back from it. And then, you know, this is probably around like this is pre-COVID, so like 2019, 2020-ish. Maybe into like later 2020. And, you know, that happened. I didn't have a car. You know, my stepdad had this Mini Cooper S. It was a 2002 Mini Cooper S, 1.6 liter supercharged 6-speed manual. That was like a fun little car. And, you know, I ended up, you know, getting that car so I could like drive it around, you know, in the meantime. But basically I had that thing, and then I finally, after months of waiting, got the insurance check, from Geico or whatever, and I turned around and I bought that S13 coupe that I used to have. From a guy named Andrew Ortiz up in Jacksonville.
Was that when you got it? It was fully built with the SR and everything?
Yeah, it had a Injuku Weldon cage. I think Andrew and his buddies like put it in with like a Harbor Freight welder or something. So like, some of the bars weren't really like exactly like straight, and it had like a little bit of booger welds in it. But it had the Injuku Weldon cage. It had a like an old Faction Motorsports like chassis harness. So it had like the little like, it's like a way less nice version than like an arc panel. So it had like the switches and stuff. I had wipers, no heater core, no AC, no radio. I had like a UE boom, Bluetooth speaker, where the dash was cut out for the A pillar bar. I just like shoved that speaker in there and just blasted all the way up. But yeah, that car had a S13 red top SR20 in it, T28 turbo, just the regular journal bearing one, not the S15 one. External wastegate on stock manifold, 550cc injectors, and Nismotronic CCU. And Freddie Spec Tuning tuned that car like 5 or 6 years before I ever got my hands on it. And it made 297 wheel horsepower and 305 foot-pounds of torque.
Wow.
And
he's been tuning for a long time.
Yeah,
3
man.
years before you got it, yeah.
Yeah, so I think I owned that car for like another like year and a half, 2 years, before I ended up selling it to Gabe, Jabe. Yeah, man, that thing was like straight race car. It was super cool. It had like sill front, the
great.
20 mil overs. It was like, everybody used to call it baby shit green because like that was like
thinking forest green, but okay.
Yeah, it was not a great color. I didn't really like the color, but it was like super clean when I got it. I think the first event that I drove in that thing was like Spring Break Bash, or maybe it was Black Friday. Back in like 2019. Oh man, I ended up wrecking into this there was like some weird thing that happened because I was already A-class by that time. I made A-class when I was still in the 350Z. But back when like Matt Mogensen and Steven Tasserino and all of those guys were driving. I think the first event that I actually got to tandem at was this public day at OSW. It was raining all day. Nobody showed up. There was literally like 8 people that showed up for the event. So it was like straight freaking seat time. I probably drove that car all day, and I only turned it off once because the power steering fluid boiled.
Surprised nothing else boiled.
Yeah, right? Like I had I was working at AutoZone at the time, and I had this like CarQuest oil cooler that like I found when I was like or not AutoZone, Advanced Auto Parts. But you could like go through all like the CarQuest catalogs and stuff. And I found this oil cooler setup that they had for a Z. So it was like a generic ass freaking transmission cooler and like some random like cast aluminum like sandwich plate. And it didn't actually have like any actual information. Rubber lines, kind of sketchy. I actually ended up blowing one of the lines, like street driving the car. Luckily, I didn't kill the motor because it shat out probably like all 5 quarts of oil.
Yeah, dude.
But yeah, I had that like early on, so I never had any issues of like it blowing up or anything. It just used to overcenter all the time because it didn't have any bump stops in it. But yeah, that was like, I think the first ever lap that I ever tandemed was with Matt Mogensen. Back in the day when he used to have his Bluesy, and I had met like the Risky Business guys by that point and stuff. But Fred, Eric's dad, actually trailered my car down there with their Mercedes GL van that they used to have. So that was the first time I ever had a car trailer to the event.
Yeah.
Like I could actually, drive like 100%, not worry about like, having to.
It is a different feeling for me at least because I drive the Z to the track a lot and I've trailered it, and when I trailer it, I do drive it way harder. Like
because like I only within the last like 3 or 4 years finally got a truck that I could like trailer. I still don't even have a trailer actually, but just go rent the U-Haul or rent or borrow one from a buddy. I typically borrow Eric's trailer, but yeah. So Fred. Came and trailered my car down for me. Dylan, who has the S14, came with us. He didn't have the S14 at that time. I think he had a hard body. Nice. And man, like, I'm kind of all over the place. But not too long after I first got that Z, I actually met Dylan at one of the Gainesville car meets. I met Eric back then too. Eric and like James McCulley and Victor, all like first gen risky business dudes. But didn't really like know them, like I didn't know them. Kind of just walked up. I think the first thing Eric ever said or heard me say was I still had the Celica at the time, and me being like young and dumb. I used to like get the trays that they used to give you at like Taco Bell and like
sliding.
Man, I used to go to like the some loading dock or whatever wherever like
in like decades.
Yeah, man, it's been probably about that long now, but so I was like, man, like I can drift anything. And he heard that and he was like, oh man, this kid's fucking dumb. Like but that was like their like first introduction to me at the time, and it ended up being probably like a year or two before I actually started probably like a year before I actually started like hanging out with them actually. But going back, Dylan Chafee, I pulled up to the meet in my 350Z for the first time, and Dylan had a like an actual like spray painted, almost kind of like the green that the LEDs are right now. It was like that color green, spray painted S13 hatch. It had a single cam KA in it. It was like had charging issues and like it was like a $1,000 240 that you could buy at the time. And man, fuck, 240 for $1,000. You can't even get a shell for that much anymore. Post COVID stuff, but so I had met I met Dylan or whatever, and I had the Z, and he's like, oh, like nice car, man. Like, do you do drifting and stuff? I'm like, oh, like no, not really, but I'm like, you want to go drifting? And he was like, huh? Like, okay. So he hopped in the car, and, this was back when, way before takeovers or anything like that. So, we went out into, because Gainesville is kind of, it's like rural, but like, if you're in Gainesville, it's not rural.
Yeah. Right by the school, isn't it? Right outside.
Yeah, like you drive 15 minutes out of the way, and like you're in the middle of nowhere. Like there's cows everywhere and stuff, So, we went out into the middle of nowhere and, started like doing donuts and like figure eights and, always like, just started driving like that because I always had, Forza 4, Gran Turismo 5. I had like a Logitech G27 since I was in high school, so I used to like play on Assetto Corsa and all that stuff. So like I kind of had like an idea of like what drifting was and like how to do it, but I wasn't like well versed in it or anything. So like we went and did some hooligan activities that night, and couple weeks later, like we were at a car meet and it was like super late. It was like 2 a.m. And at the time, Dylan actually used to live like 30-45 minutes outside of Gainesville, in a town called Bronson or Williston. So I was like, hey man, like I got this student housing, like you can crash on the couch if you want to. And I think like after that, he pretty much like lived on my couch for like a certain amount of time because you know, it was like the summer after he graduated because he's a year after me.
Yeah.
You know, basically that summer, like he basically lived with me, and you know, we like found part-time, or I was still in school, so you know, I was like, we both like were like, yo, like we need to stop stealing tires out of the back of Tire Kingdom to, you know, go try to do a SW event. So and like, you know, you show up to a tire shop with used tires, like they don't want to, you know, put that on for you. You know, they're like, that's a liability. I'm like, man, I'm gonna go down the street and burn these off right now. But you know, that wasn't really a thing. So I was like, all right, like I need like access to a tire machine. And you know, Dylan wasn't really in school, so he just needed a job. He was trying to move into Gainesville, so. We had another buddy of ours, you know, from the car meets around there. His name was Malcolm, and he actually worked at Firestone.
Nice.
So, you know, we both went into the same Firestone. We're like, hey, we want jobs. And, you know, they took Dylan at that one, and they're like, we don't really have a spot for a part-time employee, but the shop over off of Main Street needs somebody part-time. So I went over there, you know, just changing oil, you know, doing tires, alignments, stuff like that. And, you know, that was kind of like me getting into, you know, being a mechanic. So, you know, fast forward, you know, a little bit, Dylan goes through a bunch of different cars. I still have the Z, like in that 2 year time frame, I had the Z, and Dylan went from so he went from that S13, he traded it for a hard body. Then he sold that hard body or traded it for a SC400 that ended up blowing up on the way home. Yeah, so he didn't have a car for a while, and then he had an E36. That was like we actually like started like going to events and stuff, but we didn't really like know much about like setup at the time, and you know, the Risky Business guys didn't really have like access to a tire machine, or not. They had access to a tire machine, but they didn't have like an alignment rack or anything. So like there was some weird stuff going on with like the setup of this car, and it was like super dumped on Broadway static coilovers, and like thing was literally like a half inch off the ground. You know, just like even like James McCulley, you know, from the team, you know, tried driving it and couldn't really like figure the car out. And you know, at the time he had like a 5.7 like big cam nitrous, you know, S13 comp car, because that's like all the Risky Business dudes at that time at least were all like, it was mainly just like Eric and Cully, James McCulley. And, you know, they're always like driving comps and stuff like that. Like Eric used to drive XDC and, you know, US Drift Circuit. And, you know, same thing with Cully and all that. So, you know, we never like was able to like figure out that car. But he ended up, you know, getting rid of that thing, was driving our buddy Dustin's S14 for a while. And then, you know, Dustin also had a FRS. So he had the S14 and a FRS, and he'd just drive the FRS everywhere. So, you know, after a certain amount of time, Dylan bought that S14 from him because he was like dailying it for like 6 months at that point too. So, you know, it's just like, hey man, like I can, you know, I kind of still need a car, so I can like, you know, continue borrowing this from you because you don't like you're cool with it, or I can just give you money for it. He's just like, give me the money. Yeah. So that's actually the 14 that Dylan has now.
True.
But you know, and this is all like, I think at this point we're probably around like 20. I think I had my coupe by the time that Dylan actually bought the 14 from Dustin. So, you know, that's probably like 2019, 2020, like right before COVID.
So then from there, you just traded or sold the S13 for the IS, or how did you get into that?
So, I had the S13. During the time of me having the S13, I was going from school to, all right, I'm spending too much time drifting. I'm not focusing on school. I'm going to take some time off of school and like work a part-time job or like work a full-time job and, you know, just kind of like figure out my stuff, right? So fast forward to now, I'm like finally taking a class again.
Oh, wow. Congrats.
Yeah, I never like finished my AA or anything. So now I'm like trying to, you know, to finish that up now.
Yeah.
But, you know, back then, you know, I was spending way too much time drifting. I was broke. I moved out of the student housing that I was in. I was in a single bedroom apartment. It was really expensive. And when I like went back to, because Firestone didn't end up working out because that was also too much time away from school. So I stopped working there, worked like part-time here and there at like a couple of different shops, you know, just doing small stuff. And, you know, I ended up selling that S13 because like it had a ACT 6-puck unsprung clutch that was like super aggressive because it's like straight race car. So it was like really not dailyable, and I was dailying it. And like every time I went to OSW, it'd break a pair of axles and like, you know, all of that stuff. So, you know, I was just like, all right, like I can, and also a lot of the arms and stuff on it needed to be replaced. I wanted to change a body kit. I didn't really like, the SR was good to me, but if I wanted to make more power, I wasn't really like, I didn't trust it, you know, because everybody's like, oh, SRs are unreliable. Mine was, but that's because I left it alone, you know. Stay off a limiter, you know, put good gas in it, change oil every event, you know, stuff like that. So, you know, I can just, after that, like 2 years, year and a half, or however long it was of driving that car, it just like wasn't really viable for me to continue owning it. And, you know, I didn't have, like I ended up trading that Mini Cooper that I had for a 2002 Frontier that was a four-cylinder, 5-speed manual. So that thing could not haul a trailer. I had a motorcycle in the back of that thing and it was struggling going up hills.
I bet.
So I ended up selling my S13 to Gabe. Gabe ended up like, you know, parting it out, selling it to some other dude, and he partied it out even further. So that car like doesn't really exist anymore. But I sold the S13 because, you know, I always wanted, like, the original plan with the Z was I wanted to put a 1J in the Z because I always loved 1Js. They sounded super sick. I always like nerded out about like it having the you know, unequal, like the, because 2J is like an 86 by 86 bore and stroke, whereas 1J, I think off the top of my head, is an 86 piston and 76 stroke. So it's a little shorter, you know, likes to rev a little bit more. So I always thought that was super cool, and, you know, I always wanted that. So the Z ended up getting totaled. I was like, all right, I want to try something else because I always wanted a S13, could never find a S13. Bought the S13. That wasn't really like a normal enough car for me to own at the time. So I ended up selling that. I bought a CBR 600 and I rode that around for a while until this guy that I went to high school with, his name was Ricardo, who actually ended up moving up to Gainesville. He was a year ahead of me, but he actually ended up moving up to Gainesville, and he hit me up while I still had the S13 and wasn't like ready to get rid of it. And he was like, hey, I have this IS300, you know, that like, it like probably is a popped head gasket. I don't know. The radiator's bad. It needs a battery. And I was like, yeah, I don't really like have a whole bunch of money. How much you want for it? And he was like, oh, I want like $3 or $4 grand because ISs have always been expensive. Yeah. So, you know, he, you know, I was like, nah, I'm good. And eventually whenever I sold the S13, you know, like a year later, you know, I hit him back up and I was like, hey, do you still have that IS? And he was like, yeah, it's been sitting at my ex-girlfriend's apartment complex for like, since I texted you originally about it. I was like, oh shit. So, you know, I went and looked at the car, you know, had somebody like come jump it, started up fine. It wasn't like smoking or anything. Shut it off quick because it didn't, like the radiator was, you know, screwed. Yeah. So eventually I went back and, you know, by this time I had already, you know, I was already like a part of the team because the original thing with Risky Business was you had to be A-class to be on the team. Yeah. So made A-class, had the S13. We weren't really like doing team stuff necessarily at the time because Eric had his,
Comp
super
stuff.
crazy comp car, and I had like this, very, very mild 240. So I ended up, selling that. Eric had an IS. I bought mine, ended up negotiating super far down. I ended up buying that car for $1,200.
Wow.
It needed a radiator and a battery, and I dailied it like that for like 8 months.
Without getting that stuff? Like,
oh, no. Like I bought a Mishimoto, and I bought like a battery, and that Mishimoto and that Interstate battery are still in the car.
Wow.
Bought that. It came on like some tie-in flexi coilovers. I still had my battles from the 240. So I ended up, the moment I got that thing home, I like before I even got the radiator and stuff, I slammed the coils as low as they'd go. I put the battles on it, and like rolled the fenders a little bit more because I do like fender rolling on the side and stuff. And drove that car like that for a while. Ended up selling the bike, used that to buy a CD. I put that behind the stock 2J.
Okay.
Drove it like that for a while. Did solid subframe and dip bushings. Got like a Drift HQ angle kit for it, and drove that car pretty much like that until like the 1J went in it.
Nice.
Yeah.
I've always loved ISs. I just never find them or see them like you said, like they usually are more expensive than any other car. Like that's a crazy deal.
Yeah, man.
Finding one.
We ended up actually, because later on, like Dylan had one. Eric's first car was an IS, and then like later on, our buddy Bobby, who like does a lot of media stuff, Bobby Getsan, bought an IS too, and he still has his. Dylan sold his. That's actually how he ended up getting his 1J for his car.
True.
So his S14 is now 1J as well. Has been for a little bit, but the IS was like something I always wanted. My buddy Rick, his Instagram handle's Rupe, but he's like down in Miami now, and he had one in high school when I was in high school, and he let me drive it. And, it had like a straight pipe on it. And, it was like super cool, like Jay-Z. It was faster than my Celica at the time. He let me drive it and like try to do some donuts in it and stuff one time, and I thought it was like the coolest shit ever. So like I always like wanted an IS, but it never was like feasible financially for me to have one up until I got that crazy good deal. So, but that car, like it had the coilovers, it already had like an NRG quick release on it. It had W55 manual swap too, because that's a 01. So 01s are all factory automatic unless somebody swapped it in. But OEM, clutch pedal, like full trans, drive shaft, everything. So when I went CD, I actually ended up selling that, like, trans clutch, drive shaft, flywheel, all of that to my buddy Bobby, and we ended up manual swapping his car too.
True.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing that your swap was relatively easy because it's a JZ.
Toyota motor into a Toyota, is pretty easy. Especially with it being an 01, it really like I had to run like a 12-volt wire to the MAF, and I had to like change a couple pins on the ECU, but I found everything online to do it, and I actually did that for like I had been accruing like stuff for the JZ for a while. Finally bought the JZ, and I'd never driven a comp. I still have only driven two, but or like single person comps, but I ended up renting a bay out of Eric's shop, to do that swap. And, I think it took us like a month to do, like all of the intercooler piping, all of the exhaust work, put the motor in, clutch and stuff, swap the swap stuff. Cause I have a Collins adapter kit, for the CD to the JZ. So whenever we did that, we basically just like bought a new adapter pilot bushing, and just took everything off the old motor, put it on the new one, slapped it in. So Eric did all of the fab work. He's actually the only person that's like the only people that have touched that car is me, Dylan, and Eric.
True.
So that's a pretty cool thing.
Yeah. That's pretty dope.
But yeah, you know, we did the swap for the OKC Round 2 event that they did at Orlando Kart Center. Orlando Drift hosted it.
Yeah.
And you know, because so in their rules, you know, if you wanted to drive Street League, you could have like a swapped motor, but it had to be like a stock swap, right? So if you had a 240, you could have an SR in it, right? But since they never sold IS with a 1J in it, I ended up getting put in the modified league along with Eric and his, you know, crazy 2J car and, you know, all of that. Yeah. So my first battle was against Ryan Acevedo, and he ended up knocking me out. But, you know, it was kind of like a weird call. Yeah. You know, somebody went off, you know, the round before, and, you know, brought a bunch of dirt onto the track, and, you know, outer zone 1, kicked the dirt up. They're like, oh, he went off. So I got a 0 for that. Dang. So it is what it is. But, happens. You know, no hard feelings. You know, Ryan's a cool guy. Yeah. So, great driver. You know, good driver.
Yeah. So what, with the team, like all of you are this, from pictures, some pictures look a little deeper yellow, but it's, to me, I want to describe it as like a banana yellow. All of you guys.
It's definitely like a very, very like pastel, you know, color. Yeah. But Dylan was actually the first person to paint his car. He actually picked that color out. Yeah. He's like, I want, you know, something different. And then I didn't really want to paint my car yellow originally. Eric also didn't want to paint his car yellow. So that was the iteration when the car got painted purple. But, you know, drifting's expensive, paint's expensive. I didn't really want to cough up the money for like nice paint. Yeah. So I ended up getting this paint from this website called like paintyourcar.com or something. It was like $150. Yeah, man. It was $150 for a full gallon with activator and reducer, and like a couple stir sticks, filter, you know, stuff like that. And oh my God, this paint, like, so all of the cars have been like painted by us, like at Eric's shop, with an exception of Dylan's car, which got painted at our buddy Ivan's house. Okay. Because his dad does like body work, and they have like a paint shop in their backyard. So, so, you know, we basically did all of the paint work on all of our cars. And, you know, originally, like I bought like a Harbor Freight portable like garage for like $200, and we painted it in that, and it was way too small for that car. Sure. But you know, it didn't really turn out super great. Like the best explanation that I can say for the consistency of that paint is it looked like somebody sprayed Crayola crayon wax all over the car. Hot wax. Yeah, man. So, you know, like you can like go back and look at the pictures of the car, and like, you know, like the fender is like super shiny, but then the door is super dull, and like it wasn't consistent at all. But you know, wasn't really super great. So whenever it came time for you know, refreshing the cars and stuff for final bout, it was just kind of like, all right, like let's do it right. I didn't really like have the mental capacity to try to figure out what color I wanted, because I was so indecisive. And our buddy Matthew Gallup, who actually you know, has been friends with Dylan and everybody for a long time, and he's like been into drifting for a long time. His car wasn't, you know, running for a really long time, but he actually had always talked about matching cars with Dylan. So he painted his car yellow. And then, you know, Dylan's car was also yellow. Yeah. So it was like, all right, like, are you guys going to snap? Or like, you know, what's going on here? So, you know, Eric also, you know, he painted his car like a red orange kind of color, with the same paint from that website. And it turned out just as like waxy, you know, stuff. So he was like, all right, like, you know, let's you know, let's screw it, let's do the yellow. And I was like, well, I guess. So, you know, everybody did it, and honestly, I'm pretty happy with it.
It does look so much better when all of the cars are together. It does look like any matching. It could be the shittiest color in the world, but like a bunch of cars that same color do look cool mobbing together.
And then, we always, I always like used to watch like all the all the like old Final Bout videos and like all the hot version videos and old like D1 GP stuff. I like started watching whenever like I started becoming like friends with everybody on Risky Business and stuff, and it was always like super cool to like see like team driving, but like all the cars are matching.
Right,
they all are like cohesive. So, we all have BN Aero. All the 240s have Origin stuff.
Cool.
I have like a BN blister style kit on the IS because obviously Origin doesn't make Aero for, ISs. So, and then, the charge speed hood. So, they're all BN, all wide body. They all have Type 2 hoods, roof wings, everything's painted. So, just like the cohesive styling of having all the cars look the same, is kind of, something that you don't really see super, super often. No. Or maybe more so now, but, whenever we were like, we want to have all the cars like matching and stuff like that, it wasn't really too much of a thing. Or I say not too much of a thing. It's been done before. We're not doing anything new. But
it's not as popular as like
because everybody wants to have their own like style and stuff.
Style.
But I feel like everybody definitely has their own bit of personality. So like but Eric and Gallup both have S13s, but like you look at Eric's car and he's got like the super made fender canards and Type 4 fenders and stuff on his car, and like they all like look similar and they all look cohesive, but everybody has their own like little stylistic things. Eric with the like combat eye and the eyelids, and I've got like the paint match visors or rain guards and stuff. Eric's got his canards, and Gallup's car is just Gallup's car. Yeah. he's very like outspoken and stuff. So it's just he's got all his like OG stickers all over the car and stuff like that, because he's been around for a while. He just never like was able to finally like hop in the car and like start driving. So. He's got like a bunch of super old brake shift stickers and stuff all over his car. Shout out Kip and all the brake shift guys. Back when I had the S13, that was like I used to really mainly tandem with like Kip and like all the Gabe and all the brake shift guys, because we all had like similar power cars and all that. So that was always fun. But
so going now. You all have the same looking stuff. It was pretty much for Final Bout. Once one person did it, everybody kind of jumped in and.
Yeah, it. Probably like a year or two ago now. I used to work with Dylan at Nissan, so we'd always like chop shit up, watch videos and stuff whenever we had like free time, and Dylan and I were talking, and we're talking about like, not that like there's anything wrong with OSW, but like a skid pad is at the end of the day, just like a skid pad, like a big parking lot basically. We wanted to try new things, right? And Florida, we have like Sebring and stuff, but there's not really like the really big variety that isn't like just circle tracks or skid pads, So it was like, all right, like we want to go drive other places. So we went to a trip to the pond, 4 and 5 at Mid Pond. And Mid Pond is such a crazy, like exhilarating track. And we're just like, man, like we need more like these like new experiences and stuff. Cause it's like a little vacation when you get to, go drive 8-10 hours away and, go see all these like new different places and new tracks and, all of that. So after the second time we went to Mid Pond, we were like, all right, like, we want to, or no, it was after the first time we went to Mid-Pond. We were like, all right, we want to do more driving out of state, but like do more like team style stuff. So our plan was we were going to drive trip to the pond again, and then we were going to apply for Knuckle Up Double Cup 3 and, you know, just see what happened. So, you know, we drove, I think the first time we went to Mid-Pond, you know, we got to drive with a lot of different people, you know, the Team Baldhead guys, the Mitsudo guys, the Coat brothers. A lot of those guys are like Georgia people, but they're all like, you know, style cars and, you know, all pretty cool looking stuff. So we got to drive with all of those guys, got to meet the Front Street guys. You know, we've known like Sean Booth and stuff for a while. He was there at the first one. And then, you know, at the second trip to the pond that we did, we actually got to, you know, drive with the same people, but I think the Front Street guys didn't come. I think Booth went, but we, you know, I met Carl from the Faction podcast. Okay. You know, I let him do a couple laps in my car because that was back when his car was still NA2J. He was like, oh, like, do I want to go beams or do I want to go 1J? And I was like, yo, 1J is the way. So I let him drive my car, and, you know, he's got a 1J in his car now too. So yeah, but going back, you know, we drove, they actually did like a team event at the trip to the pond V5. So we did that, and I think we ended up getting, I actually don't remember. I think we got like second place. You know, Carl did the judging and a couple other people, but so that was pretty cool. And then we were like, all right, like we're gonna try to do Double Cup 3. Everybody like refreshed their cars for it. You know, made the cars, fixed all the broken arrow pieces. I had like my whole bumpers and stuff were all destroyed fiberglass by the time we left Mid-Pond. So, you know, went and refreshed everything, resprayed everything, and I ended up getting a charge speed front bumper for Double Cup 3, and we didn't really like. In terms of the competition, we didn't like really do too much, like in terms of like trying to score super high. I think I drove with Eric because it's two-person team tandem comp. So I drove with Eric, and Gallup and Dylan ended up driving together. And I think Eric and I ended up getting like 8th place or something because like I went off like 2 times in the run, and I think Eric did too. You know, kept it clean, but you know, when you're throwing up rooster tails and stuff, they're kind of like, hey, he went off. So, you know, did that, but everybody drove super, super hard, and I feel like we kind of like made like a decent name for ourselves. So, you know, shout out to like Joy World and stuff, but we, you know, made friends with all the Texas dudes, and you know, we were able to make it back for a special stage South. So we ended up refreshing all the cars again, because Double Cup 3 was like New Year's, right? And then final bout was like in March or May. So we had like 3 months to like, I ended up buying a whole new freaking wide body kit and stuff, a whole new like wide body kit and bumpers. You know, we resprayed all the cars, you know, yellow, and then Eric had a racing line on his car. He put BN on his car, and you know, all yellowed up, and went to special stage, and we ended up getting second at special stage.
Sick.
Yeah. Dang. So that was a really, really cool thing. We were actually talking with the because it was, what was it? It was, first place was Good Feeling, second place was us, and I think, damn, I don't remember who got third place. I feel bad. But yeah, but you know, we ended up getting second, and we had like an agreement with Good Feeling. We were like, hey, like, if you guys win, then it's what did we call it? Risky good feeling business or something like that. And then, you know, same way around, but, you know, they ended up getting first, and then I think they ended up getting 3rd or 4th at Summit, behind Animal Style and Front Street. Wow. So that was pretty cool. Like, you know, being right there with them, and you know.
Yeah, that shows the skill right there.
Yeah, because like, you know, all like our cars aren't like super. At least in my opinion, like. I don't think they're super nice, but like I try, you know, my best with the tools that I have available to me and stuff. Like Eric painted my car, like I did all the, you know, body work and stuff. Like, you know, I put the fenders on and, you know, all of that. So like we all like did everything ourselves. So for all of our hard work and like, you know, labor and stuff to pay off, like that was, you know, a really like gratifying feeling.
I bet, dude. That would be sick, cool. Man. So like I know you said this year kind of trying to do a little cheaper now stuff or like more local stuff.
Yeah, just for the rest of the year. I think we were talking because everybody's kind of up in the air on whether or not they wanted to try to do Final Bout again next year, just because, like, you know, going to Texas for a special stage, and then, you know, really the trip to Wisconsin was really taxing financially. You know, that was I think it was like a 22-hour drive to Chicago, and then it was like another 3.5 hours or something the rest of the way to. So everybody has a different thing of what they call it. I think it's actually called Shawano, but the way it's spelled is Shawano, Wisconsin. It's like the name is like native or something like that, so it's like kind of hard. But you know, that trip was super cool. I ended up taking like a full week off of work for that.
Nice. Sometimes you need that.
Yeah, but the pre-meet was on like Wednesday night. And then, you know, the event ended on Sunday, and I think we ended up driving back Tuesday, and I had to be at work at 3 on Wednesday. So that was it was
like straight into work, basically.
Oh yeah, no, I think we got back at like 6 in the morning, and then I just like went home, passed out for a couple hours, and I went to work. So yeah, that was you know, the trip was super cool. It was super awesome getting to meet you know, Simba and, you know, Ilya and, you know, all of the Proceed guys. Got to, you know, meet all of the Animal Style dudes and you know, all of the Risky Devils dudes too. So, you know, it was like a fever dream, honestly.
Big moment.
Yeah, because, you know, always like before I even really like knew what drifting was, like I was watching like the old Elator videos or whatever of like Final Bout and stuff. So, you know, it was really cool getting to like be a part of it.
That's sick.
You know, every now and then I'll see like, you know, different like Final Bout videos, and I'll like see my car. I'm like, oh wait, like I did that. Like it's super cool.
Is there any other like really big dream events that you'd want to go to, like that you could just think of off the top of your head?
Man, I really want to drive Drift Appalachia.
Yes.
But, you know, with how crazy that stuff is, like, I need another at least 150 wheel. I need to put a cage in my car, and then, you know, they have all of their, you know, different safety stuff, arm restraints, Hans devices, you know, stuff like that. So I have a lot of work to do with, you know, just to get the car to the point where it'll like be able to do everything. Because my car, as of right now, my car is on a Link ECU, stock 1J. It has like the Mamba billet wheel upgrade for the stock turbo, and then external wastegate on the stock manifold. So it made Freddie tuned it, you know, because he did such a good job with the S13. I was like, hey man, like, that thing ran so good, like I need you to tune my car again. So Freddie tuned it. Unfortunately, with the stock turbo, we weren't really able to push more than 15 PSI just because the IATs were too crazy. But it ended up making 270 wheel horsepower and 300 foot-pounds of torque.
Nice.
Yeah, so still through the same CD 3.9 rear gear, welded diff, you know.
Mid-pond is the ultimate.
Yeah. Bro, mid-pond, like, super great track. Only went through one pair. Basically, every event that I drive, I go through a pair of tires. That it doesn't matter if it's 2 days, 1 day, whatever. I just end up one pair of tires is super great. I'll buy two, like 2 pairs, just to, you know, be sure. But you know, doesn't really like consume. Yeah.
Nice.
Like Frankenslide, we went and I drove the entire event. I drove down on the pair of tires, drove the entire event, drove back up. They're still on the car, and I'll probably be driving Mystery Meat on them too.
Dang. Dang.
Yeah.
I just tried Zegnovas for the first time, and I used for 2 heat. There was 3 heat event. I used it for 2 heats, and I had plenty of tread to like drive home and stuff.
Oh yeah.
I feel like I could have done that extra heat, but I didn't want to. Those were the only tires I brought.
Oh
so
yeah.
like I didn't want to just completely burn them raw. But I liked them. They were grippy, but the Kendas just out of all the tires I have tried, they've always lasted the longest.
Yeah.
Even though they've been a little bit more expensive, like
yeah, a lot of people have like their own different opinions and stuff, but I'm not driving comps. Like most of the events that we drive are like fun events. Mm-hmm. So like, as far as like me and the rest of the team, we all just go buy a couple pairs of Kendas, and all the cars are running the same amount of pressure, same like suspension setup for the most part. So it makes it just really, really easy to drive with each other.
Yeah.
Because like there is like something to be said about like having a group of friends that you can do like 100% with and not have to hold back. Mm-hmm. And having everybody's cars like similarly set up just makes it like so much more fun.
Yeah. Yeah. I can definitely see when like I see 2 vets run together, or I see like 2 Zs run together, mm-hmm. It just, no one's like pushing it overboard. Like you said, having to hold back or anything like that. They're both putting it out there, like driving the same. Like it is cool to see when they're equally powered and they're just going full force at it together.
Yeah. And like as far as the team goes, now Dylan is like the fastest car as far as like all the painted cars go. So Dylan's got like a 3071R on his car, and 20 psi, makes 420 on ethanol. Wow. I think Gallup has, I don't know what turbo he has on his car, but it's a KAT with a bottom end in it, and I think his car is probably around like 350. And then Eric's car's RB20 with like precision turbo on it. That's like probably low 300s if I had to guess. He's got a Z32 box, so his gearing is like super, super long. I think his second runs out at like 70 or 80 miles an hour, wow. Like an 8,000 RPM rev limiter, because RB20. Wow. And then, my car is the slowest and heaviest out of all of them. So I'm just like, banging limiter everywhere, trying to get my hardest to keep up. But it's, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah. Sounds like it, man. Dang. Well, is there anything else you want to touch on or anything before we close out?
Yeah, man. Shout out to everybody on the team. Dylan, Eric, Gallup. Shout out to my wonderful girlfriend Boombi. All the other guys on the team, Victor, Thomas, Cully, all of the OGs, and Alex Schlegel. Thank you for getting me into drifting.
Oh yeah.
Needed somebody to push me over the edge.
Sometimes we all need that.
Yeah, man.
And you be that for somebody too one day.
Yeah, man. Like every like event that we go to, because I have 4 doors, I always have like a bunch of people asking for ride along. So I'm just like, all right, hop in. So like for example, at Final Bout, I probably gave like 30 different people like ride alongs. And like every time I get to hear like, oh, like this is my first time, being in a drift car, I'm like, all right, like I'm gonna go a little bit harder. So it's always like really cool. But I just really like love the sport, and I'm excited to see what everything what I can continue to get out of it, just different
and
tracks.
Give to it too.
Man, anybody that ever hits me up and stuff, I'm always like willing to give like any kind of like setup advice or You know, I work as a mechanic, so like, you know, I'll have people ask me like questions about their car and stuff like that. I always try to help out as much as I can, you know, just try to give back as much as I can, just because like drifting is like given a lot to me in like an emotional sense and stuff. So, you know, anything that I can do to like help the sport, you know, continue to, you know, be a thing, and, you know, like just continue to like have people with, you know, presentable cars that drive hard. Like if there's anything that I can do to, you know, help people, you know, continue to, you know, have like the cool like style cars and stuff like that, I will, you know, like nothing, I don't have any problems with like, you know, bash bar people or, you know, anything like that. But, you know, when I think of like drifting internally, like my vision of it is like cool low body kits, you know, loud cars, rev limiter banging, you know, big tire smoke, you know, stuff like that. So it's just like more of like, I guess I'm just more interested in like the style aspect of it than like the competition, you know, like I'm gonna take all my bumpers and doors off and, you know, crash into people type stuff. You know, which if that's what you're into, you know, that's cool. Just please don't crash into my car. If it happens on accident, it is what it is. But, you know, I'm not trying to, you know. I don't want to fight anybody.
Change the body kits again.
Yeah, man. I've gotten so good at fiberglass work. I hate it. But I'm not putting KVD on my car. So.
No KVD. Dang, man. Well, I appreciate you coming by.
Yeah, man.
Drop a comment below, give a thumbs up, and subscribe if you're not already. We'll catch you next time, fam. Peace.